The blazing phone screen illuminated Zara Johnson's tear-streaked face as the aircraft cabin fell silent. 3 hours ago, she'd been just another 17-year-old flying to her dream college interview. Now, trembling fingers clutched evidence that would bring an entire airline to its knees. "I recorded everything," she whispered into her phone, voice breaking. On the screen, the flight attendant's hateful words played back crystal clear. "People like you don't belong in first class." Little did the attendant know, Zara's mother was the head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Before we dive into this shocking story of discrimination at 30,000 feet, let me know where you're watching from. If you believe in standing up for justice and equality, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more powerful stories like this one. Will Zara's recording be enough to fight against a system determined to silence her? Let's find out. Zara Johnson had been counting down the days to this flight for months. The 17-year-old honor student from Chicago's South Side had worked 3 part-time jobs after school, saving every dollar for her Harvard University interview trip. She'd initially bought an economy ticket, planning to use her remaining savings for a nice hotel near campus. But her mother had other ideas. "You earned this," Dr. Amara Johnson had said the night before, handing Zara a printed first-class boarding pass for Horizon Airlines Flight 237. Her mother, a renowned civil rights attorney recently appointed to head the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, had used her own miles to upgrade Zara's ticket. "Your first college interview deserves to be special." Walking through O'Hare International Airport that morning, Zara couldn't contain her excitement. She snapped photos of her boarding pass for social media, adding the caption, "Harvard bound. First class all the way." The responses from friends poured in immediately with congratulations and good luck wishes. "First time flying first class?" the gate agent asked with a genuine smile as she scanned Zara's boarding pass. "Yes, ma'am," Zara replied, barely able to contain her excitement. "Well, you're in for a treat. Boarding begins in 15 minutes. Enjoy your flight to Boston." When boarding finally began, Zara waited patiently for the first-class announcement. As she walked down the jet bridge, her heart raced with anticipation. The cabin crew greeted passengers at the door. A middle-aged, white woman with a pinched expression and a name tag reading Veronica Whitley. "Welcome aboard," Veronica said to the businessman ahead of Zara, checking his boarding pass with a quick glance. When Zara stepped forward, Veronica's smile faded slightly. "Boarding pass, please." She examined Zara's pass thoroughly, flipping it over and holding it up to the light as if checking for counterfeits. "Is something wrong?" Zara asked, suddenly self-conscious in her carefully chosen interview outfit. A navy blazer over a white blouse with tailored slacks. "First class is to the left," Veronica said flatly, returning the pass. Her tone suggested Zara might have mistaken her seat assignment. As Zara settled into seat 3A by the window, she noticed Veronica didn't scrutinize any other passenger's boarding passes, not even the teenage white boy who took seat a few rows ahead. She tried to dismiss the observation, focusing instead on the excitement of her first-class experience and the important Harvard interview ahead. Opening her backpack, Zara retrieved her portfolio, containing her transcripts, awards, letters of recommendation, and interview preparation notes. She arranged them carefully on the tray table, reviewing key talking points about her community service project that had brought fresh produce to food deserts in Chicago. "Can I get you a pre-departure beverage?" Veronica asked the white woman, across the aisle. Zara waited for her turn, but Veronica walked past without acknowledgement. When she finally turned back, Zara raised her hand slightly. "Excuse me, could I have some water, please?" Veronica's smile was tight. "I'll be back around shortly." She never returned with Zara's water. As the flight prepared for takeoff, Veronica moved through the cabin helping passengers stow bags and explaining features of first class. When she reached Zara's row, she hovered near the documents spread on the tray table. "You'll need to put those away for takeoff," she said curtly. "Of course," Zara replied, carefully gathering her papers. As she reached for the portfolio, Veronica's water pitcher accidentally tilted, spilling water across Zara's meticulously prepared documents. "Oh," Veronica exclaimed with obviously feigned concern. I'm so sorry about that. Water dripped from Zara's now soggy transcript copies and interview notes. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to salvage the damp papers. These seats are usually for our regular customers who know the drill, Veronica added in a hushed tone barely audible over the jet engines. Let me get you some napkins. The napkins she returned with were thin cocktail varieties, barely absorbent enough for the spill. Zara noticed another flight attendant watching their interaction, whispering something to Veronica when she returned to the galley. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Veronica distributed menus to the first-class cabin. When she reached Zara, she paused. Do you need help understanding the menu? She asked loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. I know it can be confusing your first time up here. Zara stiffened. She was an honor student with early college acceptance letters from 3 universities already. No, thank you, she replied, evenly. I can read it just fine. Zara noticed Veronica hadn't offered similar help to any other passengers, including an elderly man who was actually struggling with the fine print. The pattern was becoming unmistakable. When Veronica returned to take orders, her pen hovered impatiently over her notepad as Zara considered her options. Excuse me, Zara said politely but firmly. Would it be possible to have a different flight? Attendant, serve my row for the remainder of the flight? Veronica's professional mask slipped for just a moment, her eyes narrowing dangerously. I'm assigned to this section, she said icily. And I'd be careful about making things difficult. It's a long flight to Boston, and there are many ways the journey could become uncomfortable. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some turbulence ahead. Please return to your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened until we've cleared this rough patch. Zara gripped her armrests, both, from the announcement and the growing tension with Veronica. The flight attendant moved efficiently through the cabin, checking seatbelts and securing loose items. She made eye contact with every passenger, except Zara. When meal service began, Veronica gracefully delivered trays to each first-class passenger. She approached Zara's row, serving the businessman beside her and the passengers across the aisle. Then she simply walked past Zara without a word. After waiting several minutes, Zara pressed her call button. Veronica appeared promptly, her expression neutral. Yes? She asked, her voice clipped. I haven't received my meal, Zara explained politely. I'm sorry, Veronica replied without a hint of regret. We've run out of the chicken option you selected. That's fine, I'm happy with any of the alternatives, Zara offered reasonably. Unfortunately, we're completely out of first-class meals. I can bring you something from economy if you'd like. Confused and increasingly hungry, Zara nodded. That would be fine, thank you. 20 minutes later, Veronica had still not returned with any food. Through the gap between seats, Zara noticed a white passenger 3 rows ahead receiving the exact chicken meal she had been told was unavailable. Without drawing attention, she slipped her phone from her pocket and began recording, carefully, angling it to capture interactions without being obvious. Is everything all right, dear? Asked an elegant white woman in her 70s seated across the aisle. With silver hair styled in a classic bob and wearing a well-tailored travel suit, she exuded an air of quiet authority. I'm fine, Zara replied automatically, not wanting to make a scene. I don't believe you are, the woman said, her voice gentle but firm. I've been watching that flight attendant's behavior toward you. It's appalling. Surprise rendered Zara momentarily speechless. Thank you for noticing, she finally managed. Eleanor Prescott, the woman introduced herself with a small nod. Retired federal judge, and I recognize discriminatory treatment when I see it. Before they could continue their conversation, Veronica returned to the cabin with a bullhorn announcement. Just a reminder that first class is reserved for ticketed first-class passengers only. Companions of actual passengers should return to their assigned seats in economy. Several passengers looked around in confusion, since no one was standing or out of place. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks as she realized the announcement was aimed squarely at her. Excuse me, Judge Prescott called out, her voice carrying the authority of decades on the bench. Young lady, I believe your announcement is inappropriate and unnecessary. Everyone in this cabin has a first-class ticket, including this young woman. Veronica's expression hardened. Ma'am, I'm simply following airline protocol. Then your protocol appears discriminatory in application, Judge Prescott replied evenly. I'd be happy to discuss this further with your supervisor, and perhaps the airline's legal team. Other passengers began to take notice of the exchange, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats while others watched with growing interest. The young lady has been disruptive, Veronica hissed, abandoning pretense. If she continues, we may need to divert the flight for security reasons. That's absurd, a middle-aged Asian man in a business suit interjected from the row behind. Zara. I've been sitting here the entire flight. She hasn't done anything disruptive whatsoever. Veronica glared at him before stalking back to the galley, whispering furiously to another crew member. 2 hours into the flight, Zara needed to use the restroom. She unbuckled her seatbelt during a smooth patch and walked toward the first-class lavatory. Veronica materialized from nowhere, blocking her path. Economy restrooms are in the back, she said loudly. I'm in first class, Zara replied, keeping her voice level. This is the closest restroom. Know your place, Veronica suddenly shouted, her composure completely evaporating. People like you don't belong in first class. The cabin fell silent. Zara's phone, hidden in her hand, captured every word. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like what Zara is experiencing? Comment number 1 if you've ever seen someone treated unfairly because of their race. Comment number 2 if you believe flight attendants should be held accountable for discriminatory behavior. Don't forget to like this video if you believe everyone deserves equal treatment regardless of their skin color. What do you think will happen next? Will anyone else stand up for Zara? Will she be able to use that recording to get justice? Subscribe. Now to find out how this shocking confrontation continues. Will the other passengers continue to witness this injustice in silence? Or will more allies emerge to stand with Zara against this blatant discrimination? The cabin remained stunned in the aftermath of Veronica's outburst. Zara stood motionless in the aisle, her phone still recording, as curious and concerned faces turned in her direction. I need to speak with the lead flight attendant, Zara stated firmly, fighting to keep her voice steady despite the humiliation burning through her. I'll handle this, said a male voice from behind. A tall, broad-shouldered man with a lead flight attendant badge reading Marcus Reed approached. His appearance should have brought relief, but something in his cold eyes told Zara this wasn't going to be the intervention she hoped for. What seems to be the problem here? Marcus asked, his tone professionally detached, but his attention directed primarily at Veronica rather than Zara. This passenger has been disruptive throughout the flight, Veronica answered before Zara could speak, demanding special treatment, ignoring instructions, and now creating a scene. That's not true, Zara protested. She's been targeting me since boarding. She's refused me service, made discriminatory comments, and just screamed at me for trying to use the first-class restroom that I'm entitled to use with my ticket. Marcus's expression remained impassive as he looked between them. Miss, perhaps you misunderstood. Veronica is one of our most experienced flight attendants. I'm sure she was simply enforcing standard protocols. Standard protocols don't include telling me I don't belong in first class because of how I look, Zara insisted, struggling to maintain her composure. I said no such thing, Veronica lied smoothly. This passenger has been imagining racial issues where none exist. It's becoming problematic for other passengers. Judge Prescott stood up from her seat. That is categorically false. I witnessed the entire exchange, as did several others. This young woman has been subjected to continuous discriminatory treatment. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Ma'am, with all due respect, we're handling an internal matter. Please return to your seat. A civil rights violation is hardly an internal matter, Judge Prescott responded firmly. Marcus placed a hand on Zara's shoulder, guiding her away from the restroom and other passengers. Let's discuss this privately, he suggested with forced cordiality, steering her toward the galley. Once partially obscured from passenger view, his demeanor changed instantly. Listen carefully, he said, voice low but menacing. You're making serious accusations against a valued employee. Do you understand the consequences of false accusations? They're not false, Zara replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. I have recordings. Something flashed in Marcus's eyes, alarm quickly masked by intensified intimidation. He leaned closer, using his height to tower over her. Recording crew members without consent is against airline policy and possibly federal law. I suggest you delete anything you think you have and return to your seat without further disruption. From her new position, Zara could see Marcus and Veronica exchange a look that suggested more than professional solidarity. As if confirming her suspicion, Veronica muttered, "Like I told you at Thanksgiving, these people always cause problems. Should have never let her up front." Thanksgiving? Zara's mind raced. They knew each other personally. "Veronica, take your break," Marcus ordered. "I'll handle this section." As Veronica passed, she whispered to Marcus, "Don't let Sophie hear about this. She'll worry about the wedding plans." In that moment, everything clicked. Sophie, presumably Marcus's fiancée and Veronica's relative. They were family, or soon would be. This wasn't just one prejudiced flight attendant. Zara was facing a unified front. "Recording this entire situation was very smart," said a quiet voice behind Zara. The Asian businessman who had spoken up earlier had approached unnoticed. "Anthony Chen, civil rights attorney," he introduced himself discreetly, pressing a business card into her palm. "Keep recording. I am too." Zara nodded almost imperceptibly as she returned to her seat, where Judge Prescott was waiting with knowing eyes. "Exchange information with us," Judge Prescott murmured. "We're witnesses to everything." Under the guise of sharing travel recommendations, the three quickly exchanged contact details while Marcus watched suspiciously from the galley. "I've seen cases like this before," Anthony whispered. "They're going to try to make you the problem. Stay calm, keep documenting." As if on cue, Marcus's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your lead flight attendant speaking. We're experiencing some passenger issues that may require intervention. If we cannot maintain appropriate cabin behavior, the captain may need to divert to the nearest airport. We appreciate your patience." The message was clear. Zara was being set up as a security threat. "This is an old tactic," Judge Prescott whispered. "Troublemakers get removed from flights and placed on no-fly lists. They're escalating because they realize you have evidence." Marcus approached their row, standing uncomfortably close to Zara's seat. "Miss Johnson," he said, having clearly checked her passenger information, "I need to inform you that interfering with flight crew duties is a federal offense. If you continue to disrupt this flight, we will have no choice but to take more serious action." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Zara felt her heart pounding, but kept her expression neutral. Her mother's advice from years of civil rights work echoed in her mind. "Document everything. Stay calm. Know your rights." "I understand," she replied evenly. "I'm simply trying to receive the service I paid for without discrimination. I haven't disrupted anything." "That's your perspective," Marcus replied coldly. "Just be aware that the consequences of continued problems will fall entirely on you." As Marcus returned to the galley, Zara strategically shifted tactics. Fighting openly against two allied crew members mid-flight was dangerous. Instead, she would document everything while appearing to comply. Discreetly, she pulled out her phone, beneath the tray table, and texted her mother. "On Horizon Flight 237 to Boston, being racially targeted by flight attendants Veronica Whitley and Marcus Reed. They're related. Have recordings. Other passengers witnessing. They're threatening. Diversion and arrest, please advise." Dr. Amara Johnson's response came quickly. "Stay calm. Keep recording. I'll contact airline executives now. What's your arrival time?" 3:45 p.m. at Logan, gate B-17. "I'll make calls. Say nothing more to provoke them. Let me handle this." Zara exhaled slowly, feeling momentarily relieved. Her mother's position carried weight. Soon, someone in authority would know what was happening. Meanwhile, Veronica and Marcus seemed to believe they'd successfully intimidated Zara into submission. Service resumed in first class, though Zara received only the bare minimum attention. A plastic cup of water slammed down so carelessly that it splashed onto her tray. "Thank you," Zara said politely, maintaining her composure even as she noted the contrast with the warm service other passengers received. What she couldn't see was the flurry of activity happening behind the scenes. In Chicago, Dr. Johnson was calling her contacts at Horizon Airline's corporate headquarters, reaching the Chief Operating Officer Richard Thornfield directly. "This is concerning, Dr. Johnson," Thornfield said with practiced corporate concern. "I assure you we'll look into this immediately." But Richard Thornfield had no intention of addressing discrimination. As soon as he hung up, he called the flight directly through secure channels. "Veronica, it's Uncle Richard," he said when his niece answered the crew phone. "What's happening on that flight?" Veronica gave her version of events, painting Zara as an entitled troublemaker making false racism accusations. "She claims to have recordings," Thornfield said, alarm evident in his voice. "Her mother is with the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. This could be problematic." "What should we do?" Veronica asked. "Build a case against her before she can build one against us. Document everything. Get statements from passengers who didn't witness the early interactions. Check her passenger information. Find anything we can use." When Veronica hung up, she immediately accessed Zara's passenger profile on the crew tablet. The information showed Zara's Harvard interview scheduled for tomorrow morning. Perfect ammunition. During the meal service that Zara had finally received, a cold sandwich from economy rather than the hot meal others enjoyed, Veronica deliberately passed behind her with a tray of red wine for other passengers. With practiced precision, she stumbled slightly, sending a full glass cascading onto Zara's cream blouse and navy blazer, her carefully chosen interview outfit. "Oh, how clumsy of me," Veronica exclaimed with transparent insincerity. "And on your interview clothes too. What a shame." Zara bit her lip hard, fighting back tears of frustration as the red liquid spread across the fabric. There would be no saving this outfit now. "I have some club soda," Judge Prescott offered immediately, reaching into her handbag. "Come to the lavatory, dear. We might salvage it." In the tiny bathroom, Judge Prescott helped Zara blot the worst of the stain. "Document this too," she advised quietly. "Take photos of the damage." When they returned to their seats, Anthony Chen leaned forward. "They've escalated to property damage now. This strengthens your case." But the airline's counteroffensive was just beginning. Marcus approached another passenger, a businessman who had been sleeping with noise-canceling headphones during the earlier confrontations. "Sir, I need to document a passenger incident," Marcus said officially. "Did you witness the young woman in 3A becoming angry and refusing crew instructions?" Confused but trusting the authority figure, the man shrugged. "I was asleep, but I'll take your word for it." Marcus nodded, making notes on his tablet. "And did you notice her consuming alcoholic beverages? She appears intoxicated." "I really couldn't say." "Just based on your observations, does she seem agitated to you?" The passenger glanced at Zara, who was still trying to manage her stained clothing. "She does seem upset about something." Marcus nodded as though this confirmed everything. "Thank you, sir. We're building a report." The strategy was becoming clear. They were creating a false narrative to preemptively discredit Zara. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Checking it discreetly, Zara's stomach dropped. An email from Horizon Airlines. "Dear Ms. Johnson, due to reported passenger conduct issues on your current flight, your return reservation has been canceled per our terms of service. This decision is at the discretion of our flight crew and is non-negotiable for safety reasons." As she stared at the screen in disbelief, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I've been informed of a situation in the cabin that may require us to make an unscheduled landing. Please remain seated while our crew assesses the situation." Zara froze, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. They weren't just trying to intimidate her. They were actively working to derail her entire future. Her Harvard interview, her return flight, her reputation, all under attack because she had dared to stand up against discrimination. The last 30 minutes of Flight 237 passed in tense silence. Despite the captain's announcement, the plane continued its course to Boston. but Zara could feel the weight of stares from passengers who hadn't witnessed the earlier interactions. The narrative had been skillfully flipped. She was now viewed as the problem passenger who might force an emergency landing. As the plane began its descent into Logan International Airport, Marcus made another announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, when we arrive at the gate, please remain seated until authorities have addressed our situation. Thank you for your cooperation." Zara's hands trembled slightly as she texted her mother an update. "Landing now. They've called authorities." Dr. Johnson replied immediately. "I'm working on it. Stay calm. Record everything." The touchdown was smooth, but Zara's anxiety soared as the plane taxied to the terminal. Through the window, she spotted 2 airport police vehicles parked near their assigned gate, blue lights flashing. "Don't worry," Judge Prescott whispered. "They're trying to intimidate you. We won't let you face this alone." "I'll be right behind you," Anthony Chen added quietly. "Don't answer any questions without proper representation." When the aircraft door opened, Marcus immediately approached Zara's seat. "Miss Johnson, the authorities need to speak with you first. Please bring all your belongings." With as much dignity as she could muster, Zara gathered her wine-stained portfolio and backpack. The crimson stains on her carefully chosen interview outfit felt like a brand marking her as a troublemaker. As Marcus escorted her to the door, passengers watched with expressions ranging from sympathy to confusion to disdain. At the jet bridge, 2 uniformed airport police officers waited with stern expressions. "This is the passenger in question," Marcus announced with professional concern. "She's been combative and disruptive throughout the flight, refusing crew instructions and making threatening statements." "That's absolutely false," Zara protested, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I've been discriminated against by the crew. I have recordings." "Officers," she admitted to making unauthorized recordings of crew members, which is against federal regulations. Marcus interjected smoothly. The officers exchanged glances. "Miss, we need you to come with us," the older officer stated. "We'll sort this out at the security office." As they escorted her through the terminal, Zara felt a crushing sense of public humiliation. Travelers stared as she passed, escorted by uniformed officers like a criminal. Even worse, she noticed a local news cameraman filming the scene. Someone had tipped off the media. At the security office, the questioning began immediately. "We have reports that you threatened flight attendants and refused to comply with safety instructions," the first officer stated. "That's completely untrue," Zara replied. "I was targeted with discriminatory treatment from the moment I boarded. I have evidence on my phone." "We'll need to see your phone," the second officer said, extending his hand. Zara hesitated. "My phone contains evidence of what really happened. I'm concerned that if I hand it over, the recordings might be deleted." "Are you refusing to comply with airport security?" the officer asked, his tone hardening. Thinking quickly, Zara opened her cloud storage app and quickly backed up the video files while the officers watched. "I'm complying, but I'm also protecting evidence," she explained, handing over the phone after confirming the backup was complete. While the officers examined her phone, the door opened. Veronica and Marcus entered, accompanied by a well-dressed older man in an expensive suit. Richard Thornfield, Chief Operating Officer of Horizon Airlines. He introduced himself with practiced corporate smoothness. "We take passenger conduct issues extremely seriously." Before Zara could respond, Judge Prescott and Anthony Chen appeared in the doorway. "Eleanor Prescott, retired federal judge," she announced crisply. "I witnessed the entire situation and can testify that this young woman was subjected to blatant racial discrimination." Anthony Chen, civil rights attorney, Anthony added. "Also, a witness to the discriminatory treatment Miss Johnson endured." The dynamic in the room shifted subtly but definitively. "Officers, while you're reviewing evidence, you might want to check Miss Johnson's carry-on," Veronica suggested with calculated innocence. She appeared to be consuming alcohol, though she's clearly underage. One officer unzipped Zara's backpack, revealing 2 miniature liquor bottles tucked into a side pocket. Bottles Zara had never seen before. "Those aren't mine," she protested, shock evident in her voice. Someone planted those. Veronica smiled thinly. The crew witnessed her drinking, which explains her erratic behavior. That's a fabrication, Judge Prescott stated firmly. I sat across from her the entire flight. She consumed nothing but water, which I might add was the only service she received while other passengers enjoyed full meals. The standoff continued until the security office door burst open once more. A striking woman in her 40s with the same warm brown skin tone as Zara entered, radiating authority in her tailored suit. Dr. Amara Johnson, Justice Department, Civil Rights Division, she announced, showing her credentials. I understand my daughter is being detained on questionable grounds. Richard Thornfield's confident expression faltered momentarily before he recovered. Dr. Johnson, this is an internal airline matter involving passenger misconduct. Racial discrimination by a federally regulated air carrier is hardly an internal matter, Dr. Johnson countered. Officers, I'd like a moment with my daughter before this proceeds further. The officers exchanged nervous glances, suddenly realizing the situation had escalated far beyond a routine disruptive passenger incident. Of course, ma'am, the senior officer replied, motioning toward a private room. As mother and daughter moved toward the door, Thornfield stepped forward. This doesn't change anything. We have multiple witnesses confirming disruptive behavior and evidence of underage drinking. Horizon Airlines will be pressing charges. Dr. Johnson turned slowly, fixing Thornfield with a measured stare. Mr. Thornfield, I suggest you consider very carefully whether you want the Justice Department examining Horizon Airlines' treatment of minority passengers. My understanding is that this isn't your first incident. The threat hung in the air. Between them, a high-stakes chess move that could either end the confrontation or escalate it to new heights. Can you imagine being in Zara's position, surrounded by authority figures trying to frame you? Comment number 1. If you believe planting evidence like those alcohol bottles should be a criminal offense. Comment number 2. If you've ever been in a situation where your word was questioned despite having evidence of the truth. If this video is making your blood boil, smash that like button to show your support for standing up against discrimination, and subscribe to see how Dr. Johnson fights back against this powerful airline that thinks it's above the law. Will Thornfield back down now that a Justice Department official is involved? Or does the airline have even more underhanded tactics, ready to deploy? Is Zara's Harvard interview already ruined, or can she still make it? Stay tuned to find out how this battle between justice and corporate power unfolds. While Zara and her mother consulted privately in the airport security office, Richard Thornfield was making rapid phone calls in the adjacent room. As a 20-year veteran of corporate damage control, he knew the next few hours would determine whether this incident became a minor settlement or a company-destroying scandal. Get PR on this immediately, he barked into his phone. Release Statement AG-37 about our commitment to passenger safety and zero tolerance for disruptive behavior. Make sure to emphasize our diverse workforce and passenger base. Within 30 minutes, Horizon Airlines' official social media accounts posted a carefully crafted statement. Horizon Airlines is committed to maintaining the highest safety standards for all passengers. Today, our dedicated crew had to manage a situation involving disruptive behavior that potentially endangered other passengers. We stand by our diverse team members who work tirelessly to ensure everyone's safety. The statement contained no specific details, but effectively planted the seed that Zara had done something dangerous, potentially shifting public perception before her side of the story emerged. Meanwhile, Horizon's digital response team was already monitoring social media. When Warish Horizon Racist began trending with early versions of Zara's story shared by other passengers, the airline deployed its crisis management playbook. Deploy the FI influencer network, Thornfield instructed his digital team. I want trusted voices questioning this narrative within the hour. Soon, social media personalities with business connections to Horizon began posting skeptical takes. Always two sides to every story. Let's wait for facts before attacking Short Horizon. Having worked with Short Horizon Airlines for years, I can say they have the most diverse and respectful culture in the industry. Short's truth about Zara. The hashtag #ShareTruthAboutZara began competing with Short Horizon Racist, creating enough confusion to muddy the waters of public opinion. But Thornfield wasn't satisfied with merely controlling the narrative online. He needed leverage against Dr. Johnson directly. "Get me everything on Zara Johnson," he demanded from his corporate intelligence team. "Social media, school records, anything we can use, and find me connections to Harvard's admissions office." The airline's investigators quickly compiled a dossier on Zara, her social media posts, academic achievements, community service record. They were searching for anything that could be taken out of context or used to paint her as unstable or dishonest. Meanwhile, another executive made a carefully worded call to a Harvard University development officer with close ties to Horizon's corporate giving program. "We've had an unfortunate incident involving an applicant interviewing tomorrow," the executive explained vaguely. "Zara Johnson. Nothing confirmed yet, but there are concerns about behavior that might not align with Harvard's values. Just wanted to give you a courtesy heads up given our long-standing relationship." No direct accusations were made, but the psych seed was planted. When Zara arrived for her interview, she would be under extra scrutiny. The airline's counteroffensive expanded beyond Zara to target Dr. Johnson's professional standing as well. Horizon's government relations team began making subtle inquiries with congressional staffers who oversaw Justice Department budgets. "We're concerned about a potential conflict of interest situation involving a senior DOJ official," they whispered, in congressional offices. "Dr. Amara Johnson may be using her position to pursue a personal vendetta against a regulated entity." By early evening, the pressure campaign had expanded further. Horizon's partner companies, including banks, credit card companies, and hotel chains, began receiving briefings about the unfortunate situation. One of those partners was Metropolitan Bank, which coincidentally held the mortgage on the Johnsons' Chicago condominium. Within hours, Dr. Johnson received an email notification that their mortgage account had been flagged for routine review, requiring immediate documentation of income and assets. Back at the airport, after hours of statements and countering Horizon's accusations, Dr. Johnson and Zara finally prepared to leave for their hotel. Zara's phone had been returned, her recordings preserved despite Horizon's attempts to have them confiscated as unauthorized surveillance. As they exited the security office, Dr. Johnson's phone rang. The caller ID showed her direct supervisor at the Justice Department. "Amara, we need to talk," the Deputy Attorney General said without preamble. "I've received calls from 2 congressional committees asking about your involvement in a situation with Horizon Airlines. They're suggesting a conflict of interest, given your daughter's involvement." "The airline discriminated against my daughter," Dr. Johnson replied firmly. "Any parent would advocate for their child." "Yes, but not every parent heads the Civil Rights Division," her boss countered. "Look, I'm on your side, but the department may need to recuse you from any investigation into this matter to avoid the appearance of impropriety." As she ended the call, Dr. Johnson realized the true scope of what they were facing. This wasn't just about one bigoted flight attendant or even a discriminatory airline culture. They were up against a corporate machine with tentacles reaching into government, media, banking, and education, all mobilized to silence one teenage girl who had dared to document racism. "They're trying to isolate us," she explained to Zara, as they settled into a taxi. "Make us feel alone and overwhelmed, so we'll take a settlement and sign an NDA." Zara looked at her stained interview outfit and felt the weight of the day crushing down on her shoulders. "Maybe we should," she whispered. "My Harvard interview is tomorrow. I can't fight an entire airline and still be prepared." Dr. Johnson took her daughter's hand firmly. "Listen to me. This is exactly why your interview matters more now than ever. If we let them silence us, they'll do it to someone else tomorrow. Someone without our resources and connections." Zara nodded slowly, drawing strength from her mother's resolve. "So what do we do now?" "Now," Dr. Johnson said with determined calm, "we build our own coalition." The presidential suite at the Boston Harbor Hotel became command central for what Dr. Johnson now mentally categorized as Johnson vs. Horizon Airlines. Though no formal lawsuit had been filed yet, both women knew this confrontation had evolved far beyond a customer service complaint. "First, we document everything while it's fresh," Dr. Johnson instructed, her legal training taking precedence over maternal outrage. Write down every interaction, every word exchanged, every witness present. While Zara reconstructed the timeline of events, Dr. Johnson worked her phone like a virtuoso, activating networks she'd built over 20 years in civil rights law. Maya, Amara Johnson, I need your investigative skills, she said to Maya Washington, a Pulitzer-winning journalist known for exposing corporate malfeasance. Horizon Airlines has a discrimination problem they're trying to bury. My daughter has recordings. How soon can you meet us? Next came legal reinforcements. Caroline, it's Amara. Remember our discussion about corporate accountability last month at the bar conference? I'm calling in that favor. By midnight, their hotel suite had transformed into a strategy room. Judge Prescott and Anthony Chen had joined them, along with 3 attorneys from Boston's top civil rights firm, who had dropped everything to assist. Maya Washington arrived with a digital forensics expert who helped secure Zara's recordings against potential hacking attempts. Horizon will claim these were illegally obtained, the expert explained, creating authenticated backups. But Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for recordings, so you're covered legally. Meanwhile, Maya was already digging into Horizon's history. This isn't their first rodeo, she revealed, showing them her preliminary research. I've found 27 discrimination complaints against Horizon in the past 3 years, all settled with NDAs. Most involved passengers of color, in first class or business class. They bury these cases individually, one attorney observed, but collectively, they show a pattern of systematic discrimination. As they strategized, Dr. Johnson's phone rang again. Unknown number, she noted before answering cautiously. Dr. Johnson, you don't know me, but I used to work for Horizon. Airline's HR, a nervous voice began. I was forced out 6 months ago after questioning their passenger profiling practices. I have documents. Passenger profiling? Dr. Johnson repeated, putting the call on speaker. They call it premium cabin culture preservation. Flight attendants are trained to provide enhanced scrutiny to passengers who don't fit the premium demographic profile. It's all in coded language, but the practice is clear. Make certain passengers feel unwelcome in first class. By morning, 3 more former Horizon employees had contacted them, each with pieces of evidence about the airline's discriminatory culture. One provided internal emails about maintaining premium cabin standards, with explicit instructions to check certain passengers' tickets more thoroughly than others. Anthony Chen had established a secure digital workspace where they compiled and organized evidence, recordings, witness statements, employee testimonials, and Maya's research revealing similar incidents. We need congressional support, Dr. Sois, Johnson said, dialing another number. This is bigger than one incident. Congresswoman Elaine Turner, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, answered immediately. Amara, what's this I hear about you taking on an airline? After hearing the full story, the Congresswoman was livid. My transportation committee has been looking for a case like this. The airline industry has hidden behind federal preemption for too long when it comes to discrimination claims. They're trying to use my position against me, Dr. Johnson explained, claiming conflict of interest. Let them try, Congresswoman Turner replied. I'll announce committee hearings on airline discrimination practices next week. They want to make this about you? We'll make it about their entire industry. As allies rallied around them, Zara focused on her approaching Harvard interview. Despite everything, she was determined to present her best self to the admissions committee. I can reschedule if needed, the Harvard admissions officer had told her sympathetically when she called to explain the situation. No, Zara had decided firmly. I won't let them disrupt my future. Judge Prescott helped Zara prepare with mock interviews while her mother strategized with the legal team. Anthony Chen worked with tech experts to secure their communications against potential surveillance, having discovered suspicious access attempts on their hotel Wi-Fi. Around 9 p.m., as the strategy session continued, Zara's phone buzzed with an incoming email from an anonymous address. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Thornfield would like to discuss resolution options. Horizon Airlines is prepared to offer a considerable settlement including full scholarship to any university of your choice, first-class travel for life, and financial compensation in the seven-figure range. In exchange, we require only confidentiality regarding yesterday's unfortunate misunderstanding. Please respond within 24 hours. Zara showed the email to her mother, who smiled grimly. They're scared, she observed. And they should be. Just then, Maya Washington burst into the suite, laptop in hand. You need to see this, she said urgently. I found a whistleblower who gave me internal communications about Operation Damage Control, Horizon's response to your case. Richard, Thornfield authorized accessing your personal data, contacting Harvard to sabotage your interview, pressuring your mother's supervisors, and even that mortgage review from Metropolitan Bank. The revelation stunned the room into silence. Even for seasoned attorneys accustomed to corporate malfeasance, the coordinated attack against a 17-year-old girl was shocking. They crossed every legal and ethical line, Judge Prescott said, breaking the silence. This isn't just discrimination anymore. It's corporate terrorism. Dr. Johnson nodded grimly. And tomorrow we start fighting back. That night, as Zara finally prepared for bed, she felt oddly calm despite the storm surrounding her. Mom, she said quietly, regardless of how this ends, I'm glad I didn't stay silent. Dr. Johnson hugged her daughter tightly. That's why they'll never beat us. They expect compliance. They expect silence. They're not prepared for a young woman who refuses to be erased. The morning of Zara's Harvard interview dawned clear and cold, Boston's skyline crisp against the winter blue sky. Despite getting only 4 hours of sleep, Zara felt surprisingly focused. The previous day's trauma had crystallized something within her, a determination that transcended her original college ambitions. How do I look? She asked, modeling the emergency replacement outfit her mother had purchased late the previous night. A charcoal gray suit that looked professional, if not quite as perfect as her original choice. Like a young woman who knows her worth, Dr. Johnson replied proudly. They had originally planned to take a rideshare to Cambridge, but Anthony Chen's security assessment had changed that plan. We have to assume they're monitoring transportation. Apps, he explained. Judge Prescott's daughter is lending us her car instead. The judge herself insisted on driving them. I was taking on powerful institutions when you were in diapers, she told Dr. Johnson with a wink. Besides, they'll be looking for a mother-daughter pair, not an elderly white woman with a young black student. The precautions might have seemed paranoid 24 hours earlier, but the evidence of Horizon's far-reaching counterattack had justified every security measure. As they drove across the Charles River toward Harvard's campus, Zara reviewed her interview notes one last time. The wine stains had rendered her original materials unusable, forcing her to recreate her preparation from memory. Remember, Dr. Johnson advised, if they ask about the incident, be factual but brief. Don't let it dominate your interview. And remember your accomplishments, Judge Prescott added. 3 years running that food desert initiative, perfect SAT scores, state, debate champion. You belong there regardless of this situation. They parked several blocks from the admissions building, taking a roundabout path to avoid the main entrance where 2 news vans were already stationed. How did they even know about your interview? Judge Prescott wondered aloud. Horizon's PR team, Dr. Johnson guessed. They're trying to frame the narrative. Either catch Zara looking emotional on camera, or force her to hide from reporters like she has something to hide. They used a side entrance suggested by the sympathetic admissions officer who had called that morning. Ms. Johnson, I'm Teresa Liu, Associate Director of Admissions. A woman greeted them in a quiet hallway. We've arranged a private waiting area away from the attention outside. As they followed Ms. Liu, Zara noticed her studying her face. I'm sorry, the admissions officer said, catching herself. It's just, you look remarkably composed for someone who's been through what I imagine was a terrible experience. Thank you, Zara replied simply. I try not to let other people's actions define my responses. Ms. Liu smiled slightly. That's a very Harvard answer. In the private waiting room, Dr. Johnson gave her daughter one last hug before the interview. Just be yourself, she whispered. The self that stood up against injustice at 30,000 feet. When the interviewer, A distinguished professor in his 60s entered the room. Zara rose confidently to shake his hand. "Ms. Johnson, I'm Professor Rivera from the Sociology Department. Shall we begin?" The next 45 minutes passed in a focused discussion of Zara's academic interests, community work, and aspirations. Professor Rivera asked challenging questions about her food desert initiative, pressing her on implementation details and scalability challenges. Zara responded thoughtfully, drawing on 3 years of hands-on experience. Only toward the end did he broach the subject hovering unspoken between them. "Ms. Johnson, we've received some unusual communications regarding your application. Would you care to address any recent experiences that might provide context?" Zara took a deep breath. "Professor Rivera, yesterday I experienced racial discrimination on my flight here. I stood up for myself, documented the incident, and now a corporation is using its resources to discredit me. I believe this situation demonstrates exactly why I want to study law and social justice at Harvard, because systems of power still need to be held accountable, and I intend to be someone who does that holding." The professor's expression remained neutral, but Zara thought she detected a glimmer of approval in his eyes. "Thank you for your candor," he said simply, making a final note before closing her file. As Zara exited the interview room, she felt a complex mixture of emotions: relief at completing the interview despite everything, pride in her performance, and lingering anger at the circumstances that had threatened to derail her future. Her mother and Judge Prescott waited anxiously. "How did it go?" Dr. Johnson asked immediately. I think it went well," Zara replied, allowing herself a small smile. "He asked tough questions, but that's good, right?" Their momentary celebration was interrupted by Miss Liu rushing toward them. "Dr. Johnson, there are news crews at every exit. Someone leaked Ms. Johnson's interview schedule." Judge Prescott frowned. "They're determined to create a spectacle." "We don't hide," Dr. Johnson decided after a moment's thought. "Zara, are you comfortable making a brief statement? Nothing about case specifics, just your commitment to addressing discrimination?" Zara nodded firmly. "I won't let them frame this story without my voice in it." They chose the main entrance, where 3 television cameras and several reporters waited. As soon as Zara appeared, microphones thrust forward. "Ms. Johnson, is it true you're suing Horizon Airlines? Did you threaten flight attendants as the airline claims? Will your mother use her Justice Department position in your case?" Zara stepped forward with remarkable poise for a 17-year-old thrust into a national spotlight. "I experienced discrimination on Horizon Airlines Flight 237. I documented that discrimination. I will continue to advocate for fair treatment of all passengers regardless of their race. That's all I'll say while this matter is ongoing. Thank you." As reporters shouted follow-up questions, Dr. Johnson guided her daughter toward Judge Prescott's waiting car. They had navigated the immediate gauntlet, but the larger battle was just beginning. "The return flight is going to be challenging," Anthony Chen said when they reconvened at the hotel. "Horizon canceled your tickets, and they've likely flagged you in their system." "I've arranged alternative transportation," Maya Washington announced. "A colleague's private plane. We're not giving Horizon another opportunity to target you." As they prepared for departure, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know exactly where your mother is right now. The silver Honda, 3rd floor of the hotel parking garage. Drop the case or else." The blood drained from Zara's face as she showed the message to the others. Their hotel hadn't been publicized. The garage wasn't visible from public areas. Someone was watching them closely. "That's it," Anthony said grimly. "We need to assume full surveillance. No electronic communications, no credit cards, no using names in public." Judge Prescott nodded in agreement. This crossed the line from corporate bullying to criminal intimidation. Dr. Johnson held her daughter's hand tightly, both women now, fully aware of the forces aligned against them. What had begun as one flight attendant's prejudice had escalated into a multi-front war against a corporate giant desperate to protect its reputation and practices. "Are we in danger?" Zara asked quietly. Her mother's expression was resolute. "We're in a fight," she corrected, "and it's one we're going to win." Did your heart race when Zara received that threatening text? Comment number 1 if you think corporations have too much power to intimidate individuals. Comment number 2 if you've ever been followed or surveilled in a way that made you feel unsafe. Smash that like button if you admire Zara's courage in standing up for herself despite all these threats. And make sure to subscribe to see how this mother-daughter team fights back against corporate intimidation. What lengths do you think Horizon Airlines will go to next? Will Zara and her mother find safety, or are they in real physical danger? How far will Richard Thornfield go to protect his company's reputation? Stay tuned for the next part of this shocking true story of discrimination and corporate power. The Johnsons returned to Chicago aboard Maya Washington's colleague's private plane, bypassing commercial airlines entirely. The flight provided a brief respite from the constant vigilance of the past 36 hours, but that sense of security evaporated the moment they reached their apartment door. "Something's wrong," Dr. Johnson whispered, noticing the nearly imperceptible signs that someone had been inside. A picture frame tilted slightly differently, the mail stack rearranged, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne lingering in the air. A methodical search confirmed their fears. Nothing valuable had been taken, but Zara's laptop showed signs of tampering. Dr. Johnson's home office had been subtly searched, papers shifted and replaced with false precision. "They're sending a message," Anthony Chen said when they called him. "They want you to know they can reach you anywhere." "Call the police," Maya advised during their secure conference call. "And tell them what?" Dr. Johnson countered. "That papers were moved? That we smell cologne? Without clear evidence of forced entry or theft, they'll file a report and nothing more." The home invasion was just the beginning. The next morning, Dr. Johnson received a call from the Justice Department's Deputy Attorney General. "Amara, I'm placing you on administrative leave pending review," he said, regret evident in his voice. "3 congressional committees have raised concerns about conflicts of interest. The White House counsel is also asking questions." "This is Thornfield's doing," Dr. Johnson replied, struggling to contain her anger. "He's using political connections to neutralize me." "Probably," her boss admitted. "But my hands are tied until this resolves. I'm sorry, Amara." Before she could fully process this setback, their bank called. "Dr. Johnson, we need additional verification for your mortgage following our recent review. Given certain concerns, we may need to reconsider your loan terms." The Johnsons' long-standing mortgage with favorable terms was suddenly in jeopardy, threatening the home they had lived in for 15 years. Even their community began to fracture under the pressure. Neighbors who had previously been friendly now avoided eye contact in the hallway. One particularly close family friend pulled Dr. Johnson aside at the mailboxes. "Amara, we support you, but some people are saying you're putting the whole building at risk. There have been strange cars parked outside, men asking questions. People are nervous." The stress began taking a physical toll on Zara. She developed anxiety attacks, her hands trembling uncontrollably when her phone buzzed with notifications. Sleep became elusive, her nights interrupted by nightmares of being trapped on an endless flight with jeering faces surrounding her. The isolation tactics extended to her education. Her high school principal requested a private meeting. "Zara, I'm concerned about how this situation might affect graduation," he explained with forced sympathy. "The school board has received calls from concerned parents about the controversy involving your family. There's talk about the graduation ceremony becoming a media circus." Her small circle of close friends remained loyal, but many others pulled away. "My dad says I shouldn't hang out with you right now," one classmate explained awkwardly in the hallway. "He says it could affect his job at the airline contractor company." The digital warfare intensified. Both Zara and her mother experienced suspicious login attempts on their email and social media accounts. Their phones began displaying unusual behavior, battery draining rapidly, unexpected restarts, background noises during calls. "They're trying every angle," Anthony advised during their daily secure call. "Classic isolation and pressure tactics. Make you feel alone, watched, and overwhelmed until capitulation seems like the only option." The surveillance became increasingly blatant. Black SUVs with tinted windows parked across from their building. Men with earpieces followed Dr. Johnson to the grocery store, making no attempt to hide their presence. Then came the most alarming escalation. Their attorney's office experienced a break-in, with only the files related to their case targeted. Security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during the precise window of the intrusion. "This is beyond corporate intimidation," Judge Prescott declared during their secure call. "This is organized harassment with potentially criminal dimensions." Dr. Johnson tried to maintain a calm exterior for Zara's sake, but the constant pressure was taking its toll on her as well. She jumped at unexpected sounds and carried herself with the wary alertness of someone under siege. Her resolve remained unbroken, however, until the day of her crucial meeting with senior Justice Department officials who might potentially reinstate her despite the pressure. As she drove down Lakeshore Drive toward downtown, her car suddenly lurched forward, accelerating without her input. The brake pedal went completely to the floor with no resistance, useless against the car's increasing speed. Fighting panic, she managed to wrestle the vehicle onto an exit ramp and use the emergency brake and collision with a safety barrier to bring it to a stop. The mechanic's assessment was unequivocal. "Someone tampered with your brake lines and installed a remote acceleration override. This wasn't an accident." When she finally made it to the Justice Department meeting via taxi, visibly shaken and 30 minutes late, the message from her superiors was clear. The situation had become untenable. Her continued pursuit of the case against Horizon was putting not just her career but potentially her family's safety at risk. "Perhaps a settlement is the wisest course," one senior official suggested gently. "There will be other battles, Amara." For the first time since the ordeal began, Dr. Johnson found herself considering surrender. The car accident proved to be the turning point, not toward capitulation, but toward a more aggressive strategy. As Dr. Johnson sat in their apartment that evening, ice pack pressed against her bruised shoulder, a steely determination replaced her momentary doubt. "They tried to kill me today," she told Zara, her voice unnervingly calm. "We're done playing defense." Zara looked up from her homework, fear and resolve battling in her expression. "What do we do?" "We take everything we have, every recording, every witness statement, every piece of evidence about their intimidation campaign, and we go public, all at once." Their secure conference call that night included an expanded coalition: Maya Washington, Anthony Chen, Judge Prescott, 3 civil rights attorneys, a digital security expert, Congresswoman Turner, and 2 new allies, a former FBI agent specializing in corporate misconduct and a crisis management consultant who had recently left Horizon's main PR firm. "The key is synchronized release across multiple channels," the PR expert advised. "Too much firepower for them to shoot down at once." "And absolutely comprehensive," Maya added. "Not just the initial discrimination, but the entire retaliatory campaign. The break-ins, the car tampering, everything." They spent hours organizing their evidence into clear, irrefutable packets. Zara's original recordings were enhanced by audio experts to improve clarity. Witness statements from Judge Prescott, Anthony Chen, and others were notarized and prepared for release. Documentation of the intimidation campaign, from Harvard interference to banking pressure to physical surveillance, was meticulously compiled. "We release at 8 a.m. tomorrow," Dr. Johnson decided. "Gives news outlets maximum time to run the story all day." When morning came, the counteroffensive began with military precision. Maya Washington published a devastating front-page exposé in a major national newspaper, detailing not just Zara's experience but uncovering Horizon's pattern of discrimination through interviews with 20 former passengers who had broken their NDAs to speak out. Simultaneously, the unedited recordings of Veronica and Marcus's discriminatory behavior were released on social media by a coalition of civil rights organizations, each adding context about the broader implications of such treatment. "This is what flying while black looks like," read one viral post that accumulated 1 million shares within hours. Public outrage was immediate and overwhelming. Horizon discrimination and justice for Zara trended nationally. Celebrities and public figures shared their own experiences of discrimination while traveling. Current Horizon employees, inspired by the courage of those speaking out, began posting anonymously about the toxic culture they'd witnessed. By noon, Horizon Airlines stock had plummeted 25%, erasing billions in market value. Investors began publicly questioning leadership's handling of the crisis. Customer service lines were overwhelmed with cancellations. Richard Thornfield, blindsided by the coordinated release, fumbled through a disastrous television interview. "These are isolated incidents being blown out of proportion," he claimed unconvincingly. "Horizon Airlines values diversity and inclusion." When the interviewer played Veronica's "People Like You Don't Belong in First Class" recording, Thornfield visibly flinched before attempting to dismiss it as lacking context. Within hours, Horizon's corporate partners began distancing themselves from the airline. Travel booking sites placed consumer advisory warnings on Horizon flights. Credit card companies that offered Horizon Rewards miles announced reviews of their partnerships. The internal rebellion at Horizon gained momentum when 500 employees called in sick simultaneously, a de facto strike in support of passengers who had faced discrimination. An anonymous group identifying as Horizon Employees for Equality released a statement condemning management's handling of discrimination complaints. By afternoon, Congresswoman Turner announced formal hearings on discrimination in the airline industry, with specific focus on Horizon's practices. The Department of Transportation launched a compliance review of Horizon's adherence to federal anti-discrimination regulations. Consumer revolt intensified as mass ticket cancellations and credit card chargebacks created a cash flow crisis for the airline. Competing carriers, sensing blood in the water, announced special fare promotions specifically targeting former Horizon customers, with thinly veiled references to truly welcoming all passengers in first class. The Johnson coalition monitored the unfolding situation from a secure hotel suite, having vacated their apartment due to safety concerns. Their strategy sessions now focused on sustaining momentum and preparing for inevitable counterattacks. "They've lost the public narrative completely," Maya observed, scrolling through news updates. But Thornfield won't surrender easily. Indeed, surveillance indicated frantic activity at Horizon headquarters, with executives arriving for emergency meetings throughout the day. Intelligence from their insider sources suggested a desperate strategy taking shape. Sacrifice Veronica and Marcus as rogue employees, while distancing upper management from any knowledge of discriminatory practices. Late that evening, Richard Thornfield called an emergency meeting with his most powerful allies, major shareholders, board members, and political connections. In a secured conference room with phones banned and electronic sweeping for bugs, he outlined his last-ditch strategy. "We offer Whitley and Reed as sacrificial lambs," he proposed grimly. "Full termination, public condemnation. We claim zero tolerance for their unauthorized actions and announce a comprehensive diversity initiative." "Will that be enough?" questioned one skeptical board member. "It has to be," Thornfield insisted. "The alternative is Chapter 11 bankruptcy within weeks." What Thornfield didn't know was that one attendee, a recently appointed board member, with ties to civil rights organizations, was secretly recording the meeting using technology provided by the Johnsons' security team. When Thornfield admitted knowing about dozens of similar incidents that had been handled quietly with settlements, the final nail in his corporate coffin was hammered into place. The congressional hearing room fell silent as Zara Johnson approached the witness table. 2 weeks of intense public attention had transformed her from an anonymous college applicant into a reluctant symbol of resistance against corporate discrimination. Camera shutters clicked rapidly as she took her seat, adjusted the microphone, and faced the panel of representatives. "Ms. Johnson," began Congresswoman Turner, chairing the special hearing on airline discrimination, "thank you for your willingness to testify today. Please share your experience in your own words." For the next 20 minutes, Zara recounted her ordeal with remarkable composure. From the initial water spilling incident through the escalating discrimination to the company's retaliatory campaign. Her testimony was precise, factual, and devastating in its simplicity. When she played the recordings for the committee, several representatives visibly winced at Veronica's "People like you don't belong in first class" statement. "And what happened after you documented this treatment?" Congresswoman Turner prompted. Horizon Airlines attempted to have me detained at the airport on false charges, planted evidence in my bag, tried to sabotage my college interview, broke into our home, placed us under surveillance, and tampered with my mother's car brakes, Zara replied steadily. All because I refused to be silent about how they treated me. When questioning shifted to Horizon's representatives, their carefully constructed defense crumbled almost immediately. Their lead counsel insisted the flight attendants had acted without company approval or knowledge, directly contradicting internal documents Maya Washington had published showing systematic passenger profiling practices. So you're claiming under oath that Horizon has no policy of treating certain passengers differently based on appearance? Pressed one representative. Absolutely not, the Horizon lawyer insisted. We categorically deny any systematic discrimination. Then how do you explain this internal training document instructing crew to provide enhanced verification for non-typical premium cabin passengers? The representative asked, displaying the leaked document on the hearing room screens. The Chiu. Horizon representative stammered. I'm not familiar with that specific document. Perhaps you should be since you signed off on it, the representative replied coldly. By the hearing's end, Horizon's defense had been thoroughly discredited. Meanwhile, outside the hearing room, the company faced an accelerating crisis as employees resigned en masse rather than defend the indefensible. Richard Thornfield, conspicuously absent from the hearings despite a committee invitation, had disappeared on sudden medical leave. Industry rumors suggested he was actually negotiating his golden parachute before the board removed him. As public outrage intensified, Horizon announced the immediate termination of Veronica Whitley and Marcus Reed, describing them as employees who failed to uphold our values. This transparent attempt at scapegoating only fueled further criticism when whistleblowers revealed written company policies that had guided the flight attendants' behavior. The Justice Department, with Dr. Johnson now reinstated following the revelation of Thornfield's pressure campaign against her, announced a formal civil rights investigation into Horizon's practices. The FAA launched a separate investigation into the airline's safety culture, particularly the allegations of brake tampering on Dr. Johnson's vehicle. Financial markets responded brutally. Horizon's stock, already down nearly 40%, continued its free fall as major investors dumped their holdings. Credit rating agencies downgraded the airline's debt to junk status. Industry analysts began publishing bankruptcy probability models for what had once been the nation's fourth largest carrier. In a last-ditch effort to salvage something from the wreckage, Horizon's board announced a complete leadership overhaul and rebranding initiative. New Horizons Airlines would emerge with a diverse management team and industry-leading anti-discrimination policies they promised. But the attempted Corporate Phoenix Act came too late. Passengers had shifted to competitors, partners had severed ties, and regulators circled like sharks scenting blood. Investment banks refused to extend additional credit to the struggling airline. As Horizon's collapse appeared increasingly inevitable, Richard Thornfield made an unexpected move. Through intermediaries, he requested a private meeting with the Johnsons at a neutral location. It's obviously a trap, Anthony Chen warned during their strategy call. Or a desperate man's last play, Judge Prescott countered. Either way, it tells us something valuable. After extensive security precautions, including multiple location changes and electronic sweeping for surveillance devices, the meeting took place in a private dining room of a discreet restaurant. Thornfield, looking haggard and sleep-deprived, arrived alone as agreed. I'll be direct, he began without preamble. Horizon is finished. The board is preparing bankruptcy filings, but this goes beyond one airline. We're listening, Dr. Johnson replied neutrally. What happened to your daughter wasn't isolated, Thornfield continued. It's endemic throughout the industry. Premium cabin discrimination is standard practice. Across every major airline, just packaged differently and hidden better. He slid a thumb drive across the table. This contains internal communications from the Airline Executive Council. Correspondence between CEOs discussing how to maintain premium cabin demographics without creating legal liability. Horizon implemented these protocols poorly, but we didn't invent them. "Why are you giving us this?" Zara asked directly. "Partial immunity," Thornfield replied bluntly. "I'll testify about the industry-wide practices in exchange for consideration. In my personal legal situation, I'm already finished professionally, but I'd prefer not to be finished legally as well." Before the Johnsons could respond, their phones simultaneously buzzed with breaking news alerts. Federal agents were executing search warrants at Horizon headquarters and Thornfield's residence simultaneously. "Seems you're out of time to make deals," Dr. Johnson observed calmly, "but cooperating now might still count for something." Thornfield's shoulders slumped in defeat. Ironic, isn't it? All this started because one flight attendant couldn't handle seeing a young black woman in first class. Now an entire company is grounded. As they left the meeting, Dr. Johnson tucked the thumb drive securely into her purse. Whether Thornfield's industry-wide allegations proved true or not, the final chapter of their battle with Horizon was clearly approaching its conclusion. 6 months after Flight 237, Zara Johnson stood on Harvard Yard wearing a crimson sweatshirt emblazoned with her new university's logo. The acceptance letter had arrived 3 weeks after her interview, accompanied by a full merit scholarship. Professor Rivera's evaluation had noted her extraordinary poise under pressure and unwavering commitment to principles, qualities that had become evident to millions through her congressional testimony. Behind her, scaffolding surrounded the new Equality in Transportation Policy Center, funded by the unprecedented settlement that had emerged from Horizon's bankruptcy proceedings. The Johnson Rule, as it became known in the airline industry, mandated comprehensive anti-bias training, transparent reporting of discrimination complaints, and independent oversight of passenger treatment. Dr. Amara Johnson had been appointed by the president to head a special airline industry task force within the Justice Department. Her expertise in civil rights law combined with personal experience, making her uniquely qualified for the role. The mortgage pressure and professional threats had backfired spectacularly, transforming her from a respected attorney into a national authority on corporate accountability. The systemic changes rippled far beyond Horizon. Richard Thornfield's industry-wide evidence, combined with testimony from other whistleblowers, had exposed discriminatory practices across multiple airlines. Congressional hearings expanded to include other transportation sectors. New federal guidelines established clear penalties for companies allowing passenger discrimination. Veronica Whitley, Marcus Reed, and Thornfield himself faced federal civil rights charges, their cases proceeding through the judicial system. The criminal investigation into Dr. Johnson's car tampering continued, with former Horizon security contractors cooperating with authorities in exchange for reduced sentences. For Zara personally, the ordeal had crystallized her future path. Her intended business major shifted to a joint concentration in law and public policy, with a focus on corporate accountability and civil rights. The experience had transformed her, not just as a victim of discrimination, but as an architect of systemic change. "Your mother must be incredibly proud," said Judge Prescott, who had flown to Cambridge for Zara's move-in day and now stood beside her on the historic campus. "We're both proud," Zara replied, looking around at her new academic home. "But there's still so much work to do." Their legal coalition had expanded into a formal nonprofit organization, with Eleanor Prescott establishing a scholarship fund for minority students pursuing careers in civil rights law. The first cohort of Prescott scholars would begin their studies the following year, creating a pipeline of advocates trained to recognize and challenge discrimination. Maya Washington's investigative series on airline discrimination had won journalism's highest honors, and her ongoing reporting continued to expose similar issues in other industries. Anthony Chen had established a specialized legal practice focused exclusively on transportation discrimination cases, with a waiting list of clients seeking justice for experiences similar to Zara's. Even some former Horizon employees found purpose in the aftermath, with a group of flight attendants establishing an industry support network for crew members who witnessed discrimination but feared reporting it. Their Speak Up training program was being adopted by several airlines as part of their compliance with the new federal guidelines. As Zara prepared for her first college classes, she received an unexpected email from her assigned roommate. "Hi Zara, I'm Sophia Reed. I'm looking forward to meeting you tomorrow at Move-In. I wanted to let you know that Marcus Reed is my father. I've spent the summer processing what he did and trying to understand how someone I love could behave that way. I requested to be your roommate because I want to learn and grow, and I can't. Think of a better teacher. If this is too uncomfortable, I completely understand if you want a different roommate. Either way, I admire your courage tremendously. Zara stared at the screen, emotions churning as she considered the strange symmetry of the situation. The daughter of the man who had tried to destroy her future would now be sharing her college living space. The possibilities ranged from deeply uncomfortable to potentially transformative. After careful thought, she composed her reply. Sophia, thank you for your honesty. This won't be easy for either of us, but I believe difficult conversations lead to real change. I'm willing to try if you are. See you tomorrow. As she hit send, Zara reflected on how a single flight, meant to be simply transportation to an interview, had instead launched her on an entirely different journey. What had begun with one flight attendant's prejudice had escalated into a confrontation with corporate power, ultimately reshaping airline industry practices and her own life path. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, including the complicated dynamics of sharing a room with Marcus Reed's daughter. But after facing down an entire airline corporation, a challenging roommate situation seemed manageable. Whatever came next, Zara Johnson was ready, not just to survive discrimination, but to transform the systems that enabled it. The journey that had begun in the first-class cabin of Flight 237 was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. This story reveals powerful truths about fighting discrimination in modern America. First, documentation is crucial. Zara's recordings provided irrefutable evidence that transformed a he said, she said situation into a documented civil rights violation. Second, systemic racism often extends beyond individual bigotry into institutional protection of discriminatory practices. Horizon's response demonstrated how corporations mobilize vast resources to silence victims rather than address underlying issues. Another key lesson is the importance of allies and coalition building. Zara succeeded because she wasn't fighting alone. Her mother's legal expertise, Judge Prescott's witness testimony, Anthony's strategic guidance, and Maya's investigative journalism created a powerful alliance against corporate intimidation. The story also highlights how privilege operates in unexpected ways. Zara's first-class ticket, meant to be a special treat, became the trigger for discrimination precisely because it challenged unspoken assumptions about who belongs in premium spaces. Perhaps most importantly, the narrative demonstrates that meaningful change requires both personal courage and strategic action. Zara's individual bravery in recording the discrimination was necessary, but insufficient. Only through systematic evidence gathering, strategic media engagement, and legal pressure did true accountability emerge. This reminds us that fighting injustice requires both moral clarity and tactical wisdom, especially when confronting systems designed to protect themselves at any cost. Has discrimination ever made you feel powerless in a situation where you should have been treated with respect? Comment below with your experience or thoughts on how you would handle a situation like Zara's. Would you have had the courage to record evidence like she did? If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help it reach others who need to hear this message of resilience and accountability. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about standing up against injustice in everyday situations. Share this video with someone who might be facing discrimination and needs to know they're not alone. Sometimes knowing others have fought similar battles and won provides the courage needed to speak up. Thank you for joining us for this important story. Remember, change happens one brave action at a time, and your voice matters more than you know. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop fighting for the respect and dignity everyone deserves.